All right. So on the agenda for Vistro, we're going to talk a little bit first about the community of Vistro. I always like to do that to kind of give some highlights about what we're doing on the marketing side, maybe some testimonials and stuff like that. I feel like Vistro is more or less operating kind of like a cloud product in a way where we just continuously update it from when we release it, and we release service packs after service packs with really good features packed into it. So I'm going to give you a highlight what happened after the 2022 release in case you missed some of those major features that came along the way from our last what's new that we had from last year. And then I'll go in for the new features for 2023. So let's learn about our community. So we have a new website on our corporate website for Vistro, and of course we have that for all of our other products as well. But one thing to mention, at least specifically for Vistro, and the other products, is that the text is updated. So whatever the text you saw from the last website or the older website, we've kind of refreshed that text. We have a lot of good new use cases and how Vistro is being used in the modern world from the last time we updated it. So definitely take a look at that. And if you need some information for your colleagues back at the office, or if you're discussing things with agencies, you can get a lot of the good text from this website that kind of summarizes the benefits of Vistro and things like that. As well as on this page, we do have the testimonial area, which we have a few of just articles explaining how Vistro has been used with a couple of our customers. And then we have some little logos that reference who's using Vistro. Plus we have more. These are just a summary of that. And then, of course, a lot of you are familiar with our knowledge base area. So that's where we have those feature articles and videos of how to use Vistro. It's a very simple to use product, so we don't really have that many trainings that are more of those canned trainings. We kind of use this knowledge base area to really let you guys know how to use Vistro quickly. Within like an hour or two, you should be an expert. But if there is a training that you would like to set up for your agency or something like that, you can, of course, reach out to PTV America, and then I'm sure I'll get involved at some point. So these are just a collection of the testimonials that we have on the webpage, with the exception of the video that's in the top left corner. This was one of the users that we had at the Deep South ITE meeting. I think it was Tennessee as well. They kind of did a joint meeting a few years ago. It's a really great video we're not responsible for it, so it's an independent look. It's not a PTV video that really explains the benefits and how to use Vistro on certain models. The other two circles that are on the right side, these are some use case articles. VTA, we have a couple of representatives in the audience here. You can learn how they're using Vistro within the region of Silicon Valley, and kind of the cool things that they're doing with the software in there. And also we have a PTV talks with our VTA colleagues and kind of how they're also using it. A more local case, a lot of In-N-Out burgers went into Colorado recently, and they caused quite a few queues and traffic problems with In-N-Out burgers. We have a Vistro TIA. One of our colleagues, he's not here, he might be back later, was working on this TIA for the city of Castle, or the town of Castle Rock, which is down south from here. So yeah, I think after the first couple 14-mile queues to wait for a burger, yeah, using Vistro to do a TIA was a good idea. So yeah. And then as well, you can see those logos on the website. So one thing to mention, and Bill showed this during the presentation yesterday in the workshop, we do have this time to change campaign, right? This is for US and Canada users. We have subscription prices for Vistro that are very competitive, and you can get it down to as little as 1 month for $99. That's a single user license, so it's not the network offer that you can share among many people, but you could. But yeah, it's a single user license, but it is very flexible to use. More or less the management of that license is on your end, on the customer end, so you won't have to submit a service request if you want to change the license to another user, another machine. It's just not as flexible as some of those network-based licenses that we have. So going back to the end of Lucas's presentation, where he was talking about Visum and the removal of the synchro import. Of course, we don't want to leave you high and dry with that. So this is a really good offer if you currently don't have Vistro or Visum, that you can maybe start to explore it because it's time to change. And we've been doing a lot of things with ITE lately. You may have seen some of the things if you have the journal delivered in your inbox. They're actually I don't even know if they have the paper copy anymore or not. There's been a few articles. One, yes, we have the ad in one of the journals, again, with the Time to Change campaign. But we do have another couple mentions within the journal. One was directly from the director's message, specifically mentioning this ITE integration that we have with the ITE trip generation manual, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So it was a really cool write-up that they had there. And then the one on the right side for you, this was, again, just another mention about this ITE trip generation manual, and it kind of explains like how it works and the benefits and things for Vistro. So it's really cool to have this marketing and traction within the ITE community. All right, so let's jump into the 2022 post release. So this is all the service packs. There's three really big things that I would like to go through. One is we did release the HCM 7th edition, kind of right after the major release of 2022, and I'll get into that in 1 second. We have a license size update. So if you're getting the new licenses with the Bing maps and stuff delivered to you, this should be updated within that new license structure. And then the trip generation, we released the first stage of the trip generation last year, but I'm going to explain that when I get to the 2023 features. All right, so summary of the HCM 7th edition. We heard a lot yesterday about needing to understand CAVs and the impacts of CAVs on certain networks and stuff like this. Well, of course, the HCM 7th edition, one of the major focuses was bringing in this CAV penetration rate into analyses at roundabouts and at signalized intersections. And so that's what Vistro implemented within those methodologies. So we have a penetration rate that you can enter in the volume workflow tab. And then that will allow you to quickly look at the signalized intersections and roundabouts and understand what those capacity differences are from using CAVs versus not using CAVs or doing a blend of CAVs. We do have a PTV talks on this, and we have a couple of articles. So you can, again, visit the knowledge base and kind of read up on that. And getting into this license size update. So we're getting larger as a Vistro model. I know many years back, everyone was like, Vistro is the little brother of Visum and blah, blah, blah. But I think we're on our own 2 feet now. So Vistro, it is getting bigger. We have some really big customers that we're working for. Of course, we have VTA, and they're using it for their whole region, and they need more intersections that they can support within that model. We have a new MPO, Corpus Christi, and I hope I can announce it because I just did. So yeah, so we're working in Corpus Christi region. So that's another MPO that will have a lot of intersections that will need that capacity. And City of Houston as well. I mean, that's a very large city that's working with Vistro right now. So I mean, I have this in kilometers. I think the last time I presented it to the Europeans, but it's like, I think it's like 650 square miles is the size of Houston. So they're looking around, you know, almost 2,500 signals or so. And then City of Montreal, it doesn't appear to be big like on a map, but it really is big, a big city. They have a lot of signals there. It's really compact and dense. So yeah, so Montreal is another large area that we're working with. The old limits, you can see there, we X'd them out. It was like 2,500 nodes. And as I explained yesterday in the workshop, one intersection's like 5 vSUM nodes. But then when you start connecting the legs together, the number of nodes kind of change. So it's a variable amount. So it's really hard to guess how many intersections you end up in the end. But it's about 2,500 to 3,000 intersections that you can support within the new limits of Vistro. So it's pretty sizable. Okay, and let's roll into the 2023 releases, features. So the first thing we want to, it's always funny, the first thing we want to show is the UTDF imports, and you're probably asking yourself, that's not new, that's been around for a long time, but I think we reinvented it, or will be reinventing it very soon. You've heard about Econolite, and we'll have a session on that a little bit later in this session here. So with Econolite, they have the Syntrax software, and the Syntrax, that software can export out all of the signal timing that they have in UTDF format, as well as the timing plans, which is going to give you the splits and offsets and things like that. So we're able to extract that out from Syntrax and get that into Vistro for all of your intersections. And we've also been talking to MyoVision. So they have their scout counts that you can get for your local TIAs and stuff like that. Within this, they have two formats that they export as UTDFs. Currently, with the release, we'll export one, but we'll soon have the other one in an upcoming service pack, and I'll explain that. So they can export this as a lane-based UTDF, and that will get you of course, the vehicle counts, and then you get the heavy vehicles, there's pedestrians, there's bicycles, there's peak hour factors, and all of that's going to be assigned to your turn movements and your lane configurations. So if you have a lot of these, it's a really good import to kind of get you started straight from MyoVision. Now, there has been some talks about also applying this to the intersection level where they have cameras, and so we're going to keep talking to them a little bit further. So the other, well, like I said, we have phasing, we have timing, and we have lanes right now. Those are the three that we focused on to bring in the import from these specific providers. One funny thing about UTDFs is like everyone kind of does it a little bit differently. And so like some people use double spaces, some people use quotation marks, some people have it in a slightly different format. So if you're using this feature and for some reason your provider doesn't import on this, please let us know and we'll try to fix that format to make sure it works. So we've really only tested it just on the Econolite, MyoVision, and Synchro side in Excel. I want to show you what it will look like in 2023 and what it would look like in the next service pack after 2023. So in 2023, you would just go to the file menu here. It's really easy. You go to import and then you go to UTDF. So it's right below the Synchro import. And when you do that, you just select the file that you want. It's not broken out into a different menu where you have to know one's a volume, one's a phasing, one's whatever. You just pick the one and it recognizes the title on the top of the UTDF and it'll import it into the right place. So that's the UI that we'll currently have on the release. So it's really basic. But within the next service pack or two, depending on how it gets finished in development, this is Vistro 2024, so we're already a year ahead. But like I said, it would be a service pack. You go to File, and then you go to Import, and then you go to UTDF. It's the same process. But now you get this dialog that pops up. And so it kind of looks ugly right now, but you're able to select a folder instead of an individual file, and that will allow you to select multiple UTDFs at one time. So I'll go ahead and click this folder, navigate to where I have this stuff. Let's just do Syntrax imports, and I threw some volumes in there too. Select that folder, and now all the UTDFs that are in that file folder then load up. It recognizes what category of UTDFs they are. You have checkboxes where you can check and uncheck these to import whatever one you want. And then they kind of go import in the order that's logical for UTDFs. I did add a volume file here. So currently the volume is not working, but we will have it working for this release. And then there's a couple of scopes that you can do with the volume import. So you can look at the start date and the end date of the import. So you can find that week. It will look at that week and give you an average of that peak hour. So Chung, hold your ears. You can also do scenarios for each day if you wanted to look at each day individually. So, but you could do that. You could average the peak hours, and then as well, you could look at the hour time interval that you want to select for whatever that volume set is. So if you have 24 hours worth of data, you can say I want to look at 3 p.m. or something. We also have some other imports, so you can do it by node, you can do it by coordination group, and then you can do it by all intersections within the network. And as you can tell, it's in German right now, so we'll have to fix that. So that's the UTDF import. Let me go back to the presentation. I lost it. Where'd it go? There it is. All right, so now let's talk about ITE. So like I said, part 1 was released in 2022, but part 2 is going to be released in 2023. And so what that is, the whole thing, the feature as one, is that we have this capability to log into the ITE trip generation web app. It's a really long title to say, but you can log into this. If you have a license with the trip generation manual, usually you get a digital one with it. Then you could use that login and password to use this API within Vistro. They instructed us, please don't share those. So we have to say that, and it's also in the legal thing not to share your login with passwords with everyone else. But you can log into that, and then that will show you the. I'll get into it in a second. But the one thing with 2023, the difference is not all of the entries in that field, the lookup table, were put into the data model. So everything, of course, in the zones was saved in 2022, but if you had to look up something like your setting location to general urban / suburban, that wasn't in the Vistro data model before, but now it is. So every time you go into this menu for your zone, it's going to pull up all of the parameters that you previously put in, so it makes it easy to do those last minute changes, as well as look up the data plots. So let's show you how that works. So I'm going to go into Vistro here. I have one zone. It looks like it's in Kansas, and it pulls up this zone data here. We have a switch table position now within the trip generation tab, so it makes it easy to look at the trip generation data. To log in to the API, you can of course do a right click and then access it that way. Or there's a login button right up here in the top right corner. This is the disclaimer that I was talking about, where it talks about how to use the license and stuff like that. Of course, I accept, and I hit OK. And so, yeah, there we go. That pulls in the login screen for the API. This is ITE side. So if you have problems with your passwords, that's their support question. But please let us know anyway too. So you just click login and it says you're logged in, and then you can either close that out or go straight back to Vistro. And then you get a little confirmation again that says log out, but it's really means you're logged in. And then you could just click edit here. All right, so I haven't done a trip generation yet in this menu, but you could go through and either select a land use code by searching, or you can look at the categories and stuff that they have within this land use. So let's do something like recreational. Maybe that's a bad one. Let's do office. That's pretty typical. And then we'll do like a small office building. And you can see as you select through these drill downs that it starts populating some default data. Yeah, let's say all sites. We can do general urban, city center, dense. Let's just do general urban. We'll look at square feet per the gross floor area. You can then select the type of, if you want to look at the generator or adjacent streets or something like this. And then now also you can look at vehicles, persons, and trucks. Now I do want to make a little note here that Vistro is only going to pull in the vehicle amount, but you do have the option to look at the other stuff too. And then you can put in the data range. So let's just put in a 5 here and hit the calculate button. And then it runs through the ITE calculations, pulling from the ITE database directly. So if they make an update, it's updated here. And then you can see if you want to select the fitted curve or average rate based on whatever the result you get. It looks like the fitted curve did not have enough, but if it did, it would be populated. You can also then click on the data plots and equation link, and this pulls up the ITE plot basically generated for you. They wouldn't let us put in a print button to print this, but if you're really smart, you can just go print it from Google and basically do your save as PDF, and now you have it. I didn't say that. And if you want to look at what the land use is about, you can click on the actual description. You get the full ITE manual within Vistro now, which is kind of cool. Let's click OK. And as soon as I click OK, the information is now populated within that zone. And of course, you can do it for trips or rates. If I had it set for fitted curve, it would flip this automatically to trips. But since I had the average rate, it selected rates for the data entry. And so now in 2023, like I said, all that information is saved within the data model. So this is the moment of truth. If I click on this again, all of that information then comes back into the screen. And then I can, of course, click and open my PDFs again. So essentially, if you're doing your review for a TIA, you can have all of your zones loaded with the ITE data, and then you could basically just have the agency or whoever look at that zone, pull up the data plots, read the information about it, see if it's the right choice. And if it's not the right choice and they have a comment or something, you can quickly change it and get another trip generation. So it's really slick. So we're pretty happy about that one. And future stories. Okay, I've been talking to a lot of you here, just kind of like what you might want to see in the future. So these are my ideas. We'll have internal capture. It's already in the data model. We put it in, so it will be again coming in a service pack soon in 2023. So we figure, why have you go into an existing spreadsheet and then, we have this API. It's a wonderful API for trip generation. Why do you have to make the calculations externally and then put it back in? So we're going to have it. But then you'll have the internal capture percentage and you can reduce the trip generation rate. We'll have it laid out in such a way that it makes sense and it can be checked by reviewers. We're also looking at various TIA stories, a couple things about workflows and reporting to even improve our superiority in that area. I feel like we're far surpassing our competition in TIAs, but we'll make it even better. And for KPIs, yeah, we're looking into optimization KPIs. So this will be certain things to be able to select certain cycle times, maybe even having emissions within those KPIs as well, and give you network-wide results. So if you have any questions about this, if there's a story on here that you don't see, or if you want to add to any of these little points on here or support it, just let me know, and I can add your name to the issue that we have. Well, we call them issues, but they're really features. I can add those back to you and put your name on it and bump up the PRIO. And that's it.
Questions for Adam? Part one.
Adam, part one. One question.
Are you any Are you looking at any functionality improvements from exporting RBCs from Vistro to vSim, possibly looking at multiple patterns being in one RBC?
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. So I do have a concept in mind to do this. It's there on the list at a decent spot. But the concept, the way like I'm thinking about it is, yeah, you would have more or less time slices within the day. So you have a scenario, and then within that scenario, you could break it down by like hour or whatever the peak hour time range is. So that way you'll have the volume set, and then you'll have the signal data for that particular peak hour all under one scenario. And the point to that would be is if you wanted to take that into vSim or vSim, you more or less have a 24-hour model in the end. And you could run a simulation in vSim that would have the time intervals, and then it would switch to the new pattern once that time interval expired or something like that. It's a big concept, but it's on the list pretty well up there because we want to integrate with everything. Yeah, and as we get more data sets coming in as well, we need a place to put it.
Soil Sajjadi from Arcadis. So we get the UTDFs from Econolite, and then we process it in Vistro and optimize it, and then we can bring back those UTDFs through Syntrix to Econolite. Is that what can be done?
So Syntrix does not have the reverse process. So it's something we can talk to them potentially about at some point in time. But it's coming from Syntrix to Vistro. I mean, should we talk about Optima yet, or wait, or have Eric do it? I guess we'll have Eric do it and see what happens. Yeah. I don't want to step in on the other presentation, but
yeah, I think it's the essence of Optima too. Yeah, so I don't want to. And what data are we getting from MioVision?
So it's just the volume count data for turn movements that they have. Yeah.
See. All right, thank you.
Have you looked into doing more network results for Vistro where you can have like a sub area that you cut out and, show the network benefits from, pre-optimization to post-optimization?
Yeah, that's also pretty high when I was talking about it's the story that we have for the network results and KPIs. The question is, how would users like to see it? Would they like to see it by the whole network? Would they like to see it by coordination group, which would really just, it's in synchro terms, that's the zone. So it'd splice out just that area, or we could actually have it along our line routes for optimization, and you could optimize that specific corridor. I think the answer is probably all of the above, and the delivery of those would depend on just when it would happen. But the coordination group's probably the one that's going to make the most sense first. Yeah.